Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I'm so excited to have you here with us today and my fabulous guest, Laurie Seymour. So, Laurie, do us all a favor and tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into this space.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of ask. Well, Kat, first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to be with you. And there's every interview that I have, every interview that I'm part of, it's always different. And we had such a great conversation beforehand a couple of weeks ago that I was looking forward to. Oh, I get to connect with her again.
Oh.
So, my name is Laurie Seymour. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I call myself a quantum connection mentor. And what does that mean? We can get into what, the quantum part of that later on.
Yes.
But what it's really about is about activating and amplifying your connection with Source, your connection with that undifferentiated universe, your connection with your own inner guidance system. And for me, that has, first of all, it's completely changed my life in the years and years that I've been involved with this, completely and utterly. And it's also something that's applicable for the work that you're doing in the world, the big idea that you want to make real in the world. If you're a visionary, if you're an entrepreneur, it's also about your life. How do you have that? How do you connect with that inner guidance aspect of yourself and that which gives you a feeling of purpose and connection and self-love? And to, make that real in the world in a way that takes you beyond stress, that actually allows you to have that sense of, joy and delight about everything you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, so beautifully put. I love that so much. And we're all looking for that connection, right? Sometimes we just don't realize the connection we're actually looking for. So we search for it in so many external spaces. So tell us then, how on earth do you get into wanting to do this quantum intuition? Like how do you even get into that? Where
Right. Well, I will answer that. And I want to say that what you just said about how we look for that in so many outside places is exactly, well, first of all, it's exactly what my book is about. That is getting closer to being done. Yay. So my background was as a psychotherapist, actually, and I was in that field for a long time. And I went into that because I've always been that person that was looking, that was searching, that had a feeling of, I know there's more. And
Mm.
I, whether I would have articulated it that way at that time, probably not. But, it really started from that feeling of, ooh, there's something missing in me. There's some experience that I kind of know about, but I don't feel it now.
Yeah.
And that had to do with, my early upbringing and losing my father at a very, very young age, and really feeling like I lost the knowing about love, of what
Mm.
love felt like, of what love was. But that sense of always looking of, what do other people know that I don't know? What's out there? And what's our potential? What are our possibilities? Because, I'd read enough by then to know that there's a whole lot more to us than we might ever know about, unless we go on that inner journey, unless we take
Mm-hmm.
that inner journey. And I did that inner journey in so many different ways. And psychology as a career was part of that. And I loved the work that I did with other people in bringing them into that place of exploring their own inner journey, going beyond self-doubt, um, recognizing their own self-worth and claiming that. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, there was still a place that was missing. I mean, I started working with music, and I was a trainer in that, of music and imagery, because it's like that was another step. And and then I ended up meeting somebody who worked with energy in a way that I hadn't experienced. And in that work with her, I had a whole other experience of life, and mostly of myself.
Mm.
And in that, everything started coming into place that had not been there before. And it's a longer story. You'll have to wait for the book. But the reality was that I even left at that point being a therapist, because it wasn't therapy that I wanted to do with people. It was this work of, how do you help people claim and feel the reality of their own inner connection? So it was the
Yeah.
feeling of that, because the feeling is the touchstone. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't feel it, if it's just an idea or a concept, well, you can't do what you can't do it. It doesn't work. I just had a new client yesterday morning, and he was coming because he's been changing a lot in his life, but it's all ideas. It's all, yeah, I read this book, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this was, and I've got all these new thoughts and new possibilities, and I want to change my relationship with my wife, but he couldn't connect with the feeling inside of himself of his own value, of his own,
Mm.
inner connection with presence, with spirit, with the, whatever you want to call God, and the universe. And so my work with him will be that of beginning that process of him starting to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way that I work with energy, whether it's in one-to-one coaching, or whether it's in the Tereya meditation work that I do, or the Tereya touch classes that I teach. It's all around, how do you live life from that place of inner guidance, and what does it change? Because for me, it's the underpinning of being a successful entrepreneur. It's the underpinning of having a life that feels joyful.
Mm. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because, for me, when I think about, like you were talking about your client, how he has all these great ideas and there's all these ands, right? And I want to do this and I want to do this. for me, I've always seen that as those are your dreamers, right? And there's a lot of
Mm,
people that love to dream, but you're right, they are missing that component of the connection with it. So they're okay with seeing where it could be, but they
mhm,
don't connect to the reality of what could bring them into that and how they can connect that to heart and
mhm.
then right actually implement it to continue to feel that. Do you find that a lot of people that you work with, they're kind of in that state as well, where they have, sometimes these amazing dreams or these wishes of where they could, right, quote unquote, be,
Mhm.
and the actual doing of it and feeling it is where that disconnect is?
Well, it's a funny kind of thing. I have this in my quantum connection process. I have four different styles of how you connect with the quantum world, how you connect with the quantum universe, and the dreamer, what I call the creative dreamer, is one of them. And so some of the people that I work with are of that. And this man was extremely successful in his life, in his business, extremely successful. But it's this one piece
Mm-hmm.
that, that has to get kind of connected in. I actually work with a lot of people who get inspired and have this great inspiration, but then they go into the, mm, okay, I need the strategies to put this into place.
Mm.
And I know you're a big one about it's not just
Yeah.
about strategy,
Yeah.
because how do you keep that connection with the idea, with the
Mm-hmm.
inspiration, and from the place that actually gave you that idea. And that same connection can take you into who do I need to have on my team? What do I need to do next? What's the
Mm-hmm.
right timing to bring this out into the world? Um, on and on and on. What are my brand colors? I have people in the meditation sessions or in my inspiration into action program come up with so many creative next steps and things that they can actually and do start putting into place. So it's like taking that idea and making it concrete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that piece too, because you're right. It is connecting it with almost like one reality versus what, a lot of people will consider the 3D, right? So our
Mhm.
reality and understanding where you can connect the two so that you can bring them together. So you have to explain to everyone then and give everyone a little bit of insight on what a quantum connection is and what the quantum means
By
in the realm of
quantum.
what right. Yeah. Because I don't think people I have started seeing that word right a lot more lately,
Mhm.
but I feel like for a lot of people it is kind of it's a far off word when people think about it, right? Unless you're talking like quantum physics and then everybody's like, well, I don't know what that means anyway. So they just
Right.
write
And
it
you
off.
know what? I am talking about quantum physics because one of the things that quantum physics has demonstrated, and it's not even a question anymore, is that everything is energy, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there are particles and there are waves, and um, we can have an impact by something we do here in this moment that will directly have an effect on the other side of the world. It's called, the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
And that has been demonstrated and tested over and over and over again. Thinking about the quantum universe, that we are energy. We are the same energy that this field that we sit in is. And because of that, we can tune into that energy. We can tune into that which hasn't yet formed, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And we can, by thought, we can impact that universe. And that universe has impact on us. And learning how to be in that place of creation, because it's working with that energy, it's working with creation, means that we start to realize, oh, my thoughts have impact. What are the quality of my thoughts? Are
Mm-hmm.
they what a teacher of mine used to say, are you having rotten thoughts? Which means, are you in a lot of judgment? Are you of yourself or another person or of the situation? Are you simply wanting to do what you've done before because maybe it's worked, but really, you're limiting yourself to only what you've known. So part of the quantum leap, there's the quantum word again,
Mm-hmm.
is quantum leap is that energy doesn't travel in a straight line. And that because energy is particles, we can go from this particle to that particle out there in one leap. And what that means is that we can start to connect with what is coming to us, or what is potential, what our own potential is, and what the potential for your idea is, because that has energy too. Your idea has energy, your business has an energy to it. Where's it going to go? Where do you want it to go? What's possible? What's presenting itself to you? And do you ignore it because you've got expectations of what you're supposed to do? Or do you say, wait a minute, that's really curious. Huh, here's something that's just happened, and I could just override it and just, keep on doing down the same path.
Yep.
But usually my experience after many decades of doing this is that that's where we hit the brick wall.
Yeah.
And my intention and why I love what I do is that I'm here to show you how you can do it more quickly, because you don't go down those paths that are just going to be that same situation that you've always known.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a willingness to hang out in the unknown, to get comfortable with, I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah. That's the scary part, right? And
Mhm.
and
Or it
I
can
have to
be.
go, yeah. And so, and I want to touch base on what you're talking about in regards to continuing to do the same versus different, but I have to take us back for just a second, because there's two words that you keep using that I really want people to take in, and that is curiosity and
Mhm.
imagination.
Mhm.
And those two, I feel like, are things that are such a thing, right? When we're young, when we're little, even when we're talking to our kids, right? Like, have an imagination. And for some reason, in some area of our life, we
Mhm.
decide that that no longer serves us. And so it's swept under the rug. And all you do is think of what is next, what needs to be done, where
Mhm.
can it get
Mhm.
me to go, right? But it's
Right.
interesting because a lot of people that I've talked with, and a lot of people that have jumped into the journey of their own entrepreneurial space or starting something else, it came from a place of, one, being able to imagine it and
Mhm.
connecting the feeling to it, and two, being curious about what could happen if I let myself do XYZ,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's thank you for bringing those out, because curiosity is fundamental to me, to being able to work in this way. Being
Mm-hmm.
curious about, well, okay, I know this about myself, but what else is there? What more could there be? Um, Instead of, you get into a tussle with someone or in a situation that feels troublesome, you can let that take you down. You
Mm-hmm.
can um, get into that fight or flight mode, and you can be in judgment about the other person or the situation, or you can get curious. And
Yeah.
curiosity kind of takes a little letting down and letting go and softening, to get curious. Okay, if I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
protect myself, and that's that amygdala part of the brain that wants to take you just down the same path to keep
Yeah.
you safe when you don't really need to be kept safe anymore. The
Yeah.
saber-toothed tigers aren't still roaming the plains.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, thank goodness. There may be other things, but the curiosity takes us forward instead of into protection mode. it takes us into the realm of possibility. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where the imagination comes in, because imagination is letting ourselves kind of roam into that field, into that undifferentiated field. But
Mm-hmm.
it's also then it's how and where mm, those what seem like far out ideas come in. And then you go, well, maybe it's not so far out.
Mm-hmm.
What if? And that attitude of what if opens so many more doors.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you were saying earlier, when you have that idea or you have that feeling, it's being able to connect with it and just have the slight curiosity of, well, what if, right? I mean, and I'll give everyone a prime example. I, like you were saying, some things kind of come out of the blue. It opens a door, right? And we can either choose to be like, I wonder, or we can say, there's no way, that doesn't make sense. It's not in a time, like, right, it's not on the right timeline. I haven't reached out, like, why, blah, blah, blah. All the things, right? And you go the other direction. So for me, the podcast has been a huge piece of me, and I love sharing these stories and I love having these deep conversations. And when I got an email a couple of months back, it was a very simple email that just said, we love your podcast and we'd like to have a conversation with you about putting you on the radio. And I was like, I haven't reached out to anyone. I have not done that much social media work. Like, come on. So I immediately, right, that defensive mechanism in your brain was like, there's no way this can be real. It has to be a scam. But at the same time, there was that little tiny piece that was like, but what if, just like, so I almost deleted the email and I decided, why the hell not? So I
Mhm.
emailed back and I was like, thank you so much. Would love to meet with you. I'm thinking, yeah, right. And I literally got a phone call set up 2 days later. And it was a lady that was a producer at a radio station down in Atlanta. And she said, I found your radio station on some business, something. I was like, I don't even know how you found it. She's like, we love your conversations. We love the way that you talk with people. We'd love to offer you a weekly spot, 1-year contract. And I was like, I'm sorry, can you repeat that for me? Like, it was one of those too good to be true moments that, everyone is told if it's too good to be true, there's no way it's true, right? We have that burned in our brain.
Right.
And so I was like, look, can you send me all the information? Like, how much work is this going to take? She's like, oh, no. You just pick the shows and you send them. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, so I can have everything pre-recorded. I can just cherry pick and then we can and she's like, yeah, you just upload them here. We take care of the rest. We ask that it's done 4 days prior. And I was like, this is way too easy. She sent me the contract and it was like the simplest contract. I made my husband read. I was like, read this twice. Like, I need to make sure that this is real. But it's hearing that little bitty like pinch, right? And here's the thing. That one part of your brain that's like, there's no way, right? That one keeps pounding you. And then all of a sudden you get this one hint that's like, what if? And then it goes away.
Yes.
Like so fast. And so you have a split second to decide, do I follow the brain or that little twinge that I just got, should I go for it?
Yes. That beautifully said. Beautifully said. Kat, that kind of experience, I think it happens frequently for people. And what I think of as overriding, it's like, we can say, oh, well, no, not for me.
Yeah.
My part of my teaching and working with people is to get them to pause long enough and learn how to go into that place of what I think of as the inner researcher, where you're able to feel into it and get a sensing of, and then start to ask the questions, but not the analytical questions. It's the questions from that same state, from that same place, like, what if, or what do I need to know about this? Is this for me? Because there's some people that get ideas for other people. So I may get a wonderful idea. Okay.
All the time.
And it's not for me, but I don't know it until I go into it and say, well, is this for me or who is it for?
Yeah.
And it may be a client. because I'm working with a lot of people's energy fields.
Yeah.
And not everybody does that, but those kinds, that ability to tap into your own inner guidance system
Mm-hmm.
is part of being able to ask those kinds of questions and get that kind of clarity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's so funny that, I've always been a brainstormer. Always. Like
Mhm,
I
mhm,
love puzzles. I love putting things together. I love solving things for people. That was
mhm,
always one of my zones of genius, right?
mhm,
And it wasn't until I sat down with a human design specialist that went through a lot of my stuff, and she started telling me all these things, and she was like, "Oh, you have an open throat chakra and you have an open ajna." I was like, "What is an ajna? Hold on, stop right there. I don't understand that word."
mhm,
But basically, right, an open head, an open space of ideas. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And she was like, "Yeah, so like you can have tons of ideas that flood you, but they may not necessarily be for you." And I was like, "Oh, I can't tell you how many times
mhm,
that has
mhm,
happened." But it was
mhm,
interesting because there's that mechanism that's built in, like you said, that safety mechanism that's built in to be like, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way, right? This doesn't make
mhm,
sense. But you always get that other feeling. It's just that feeling's a lot smaller until you start listening to it more, to where
mhm.
it picks up more in a microphone, right? Versus a whisper. But you have to learn
Beautiful.
to pay attention
Yes.
to it, right?
Mhm,
And so that was one for me, especially once I started digging into learning more about myself. And that does
mhm,
take asking questions and finding people that maybe are outside of the realm of what you're
mhm,
used to hearing, because it's interesting when other people who have no clue who you are, right, start kind
mhm.
of putting the pieces together, and you're like, well, yeah, that happens all the time. Well, yeah, that happens all the time. Yeah, well, okay, now it's creepy, right? But leaning into that space, you give yourself
Mhm,
such an opportunity. And for me, that opportunity of letting other people tell me these different pieces of me that I kind
mhm,
of knew were there, but I wasn't sure. It
mhm,
was a way for me to almost restructure the brain and be like, okay,
mhm.
well, I know what you're saying. However, I've met with 3 different people who none of them knew anything about me, and all 3 of them are
Mhm,
telling me the same thing. And I
mhm.
know that it's happening. So for me, this is the real truth.
Yeah.
You are a safety truth. And that for me is not a real truth. But it's very
Ah,
hard for a lot of people to understand the difference in that.
I love that you're saying that. You don't know. I love that you're saying that. I talk about truth a lot, and about truth as that feeling in the body when everything is in aligned, when there's resonance, when you feel that flow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that capital T truth, if you will, as opposed to the truth of, well, yeah, that's a fact. And, yeah,
Yep.
it's been shown and whatever, whatever, whatever. Uh, it's also why I developed that quantum connection style quiz. It's just as a way, as an introduction for people into another aspect of who they are, and a way that they can get to see their zone of genius or their mastery realm, really.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the things that they could perhaps strengthen? Like, for example, for the creative dreamer, they usually need to strengthen discernment.
Mm.
And discernment is, again, from that inner place, not from simply just analyzing something. We don't ever throw out the analytical part of ourselves. We
Yeah.
incorporate that into this place that comes from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And it is that ebb and flow of
Mhm.
the analytical and the feeling and understanding and the trust within yourself, which is completely different than the trust within your brain, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
talk about this a lot with a lot of people, and that is your brain, like you said in the very beginning, right? Our brain is wired to keep us safe. So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if it is what you were supposed to do. The brain is going to be like, no, 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 that's scary. We don't know. We don't have the statistics. We don't have the layout. We don't have the percentage that you're going to make it. Like, because it cannot essentially process the research behind it, that's why the brain shuts you down. But you're right. There can be that balance where you know in your heart, in your gut, that like this is something I need to test out. And then it's like the brain kind of catches up. And then that's where you can put in your strategies, your systems, the new habits you want to do, right? You do that on the back end. But if you don't take the leap first, the brain is still sitting here going, nope, nope, we
Nope.
have no research, we have no data. There is nothing stating that this is going to work. So you almost have to prove yourself to your brain to get it to go along with. It's kind of like, when little kids really want candy or something, and man, are they good at like talking parents into
Oh,
it,
yes.
right? And your brain, you basically have to do the same thing with your brain, right? You have to like kind of talk it
Come
into,
on.
and like, oh, it's okay. Do you see this? Yeah. Oh, this worked. Yeah. So see, we're moving this. So you constantly have to teach it the
Mm-hmm.
new ways, the new truths, the new beliefs. And for
You
me,
do. Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I constantly do is when I have something that comes up in the brain that is telling me one thing, I have to look back over the period of my life and say, okay, I know what this truth is saying, but I think you're an old truth and this is why. And so I
Mm-hmm.
literally will find things in my life, whether it's the last few weeks, 4 days, whatever, and say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, but you're actually the old truth. Like this is the new, and I have the means to prove it. So I'm constantly doing that as a way to almost combat the
You're
brain doing
updating
its
your
own function.
operating system.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we have to do that constantly
constantly.
because we're changing all the time. We know that change is the constant of the universe, okay?
Yeah.
But that's not just an idea. It also means that we need to be paying attention to what's changing in us, and how do we
Mm-hmm.
then need to be with that, and what's next, and um, what is this new level of truth that I'm now able to tap into.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of the reason why I had been doing this work for so long. And I developed this program that felt like it had to go in the beginning, which was the Inner Guidance Mastery Blueprint. And it's a 6-week class teaching people what the inner guidance system is, and how do you connect in with it, and
Yeah.
how do you learn how to use this as your operating system.
Yeah, and I love that so much, right? Because it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that works in the first few times. I mean, not even in the first few weeks, right? It's constantly doing it. It's constantly reminding yourself. And it does get easier, right? You were able to pick up on those things a lot better than what you did before, where essentially your brain made the decision, you're like, okay, and you just went with it, right? Now you're getting to the point where you get to question those things. You
Mhm,
get to come
mhm,
back with that curiosity, which is what we all naturally had when we were young.
mhm.
It was kind of forced out of us, through society, through school, through work, right? In the corporate
Mhm,
environment, it's very structured, it's very do it this way. And so it's constantly catching those things. And I mean,
mhm.
there's going to be times too that people need to understand that even when you're learning your inner guidance system, you're still going to fight. You're still
Oh,
like, it's,
absolutely. But that's why I love the energy piece of what I do, because I'm what I think is so important is what's the feeling like in my body, and to start
mm,
being able to identify what we talked about just a few minutes ago about truth. Oh, this is what truth feels like. And then it's much easier to let go of the old chatter in the brain. And for me, it was
mm-hmm,
a lot of self-doubt, because it's like I knew something, but I didn't have a way of knowing that I knew that. And how
yeah,
could I know that? And I was lucky enough that when I for a period, a number of years, I went into the corporate world, and I was in the tech world, and I was a solutions engineer. And like, it's another whole story about how I got there. But I got to, luckily enough, I got to experience even doing that kind of work from that place of connecting with what's possible here, because I was always creating out of the box solutions for the
mm,
likes of Google and Kaiser and the military and Intel. And so I got permission, if you will, to bring that out, that part of me, and connect it then in with that very strongly analytical part of me.
Yeah. I love that. And you're like you said, you got to kind of lean into it, which I do think that a lot of people are actually given those opportunities, but because they are so stuck in, there's no way I can do it. I don't understand it. I don't have the layout. I understand that I know this, which is weird and doesn't make sense. But because I can't figure that piece out of it, we're just going to leave it on the table.
Mhm.
And I feel like so many people in their life, even in the corporate world, for those that enjoy their job, enjoy where they're at, right? Not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur, but even
Mhm.
for them, they go through bouts, and I know I did the same thing, where they don't take the step forward, or they don't take the next job that's been applied that says you can now be a manager, because I mean I've only been here a year, and so I mean I know that I know that I could do it, but I don't know how to explain to them that I know that I could do it, right?
Mhm.
Like, so, and that comes back to that inner courage and that inner confidence of yourself, which does not come from the brain. Your brain does not teach you that. That is something, like you said, it's something you have to feel, and it's something you have to lean into. And when you learn to believe in who you are, it's a totally different conversation. You come across as a totally different person, even if you don't have all the answers. And there's so much confidence built behind that people are going to be willing to listen because of the way that
Mhm.
it's presented.
Exactly, exactly. And it's all coming from that place of living from the inside out rather than from the outside in, rather than, oh, I'm always looking out there for the answers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing all my research on Google, or I'm, asking the next person or reading the next book, which is what this client has been doing. I, and, when you start to know how to explore from the inside, know how to do
Mm-hmm.
that inner research, that's powerful. That's a
Yeah.
strength that no one can take from you, and it's limitless.
Mm-hmm.
It
So
doesn't
much.
have it is connected with everything there is. So you get to tap into that. That's powerful.
Yeah, it's just taking a chance. And why not? We take a chance on everything, right? We take a chance on people that we want to date. We
Mhm.
take a chance on our kids when our kids mess up. We take a chance on our family, on our job. Why can't we take a chance on ourselves?
Mhm. Yes, yes. Yeah, no, I
Oh,
love it. I love it, Kat. I'm very drawn to how this is syncing up as we're having this conversation.
yeah, no, I love it so much. And this to me is, it's such a conversation that needs to happen, that I think a lot of people are missing those pieces, right? Like you said, they read the books, they do the research, but the connection of how they can do their own work, I think that's where a lot of the disconnect is. So I love that we're having this conversation to really give people an insight on what that missing piece could be,
Mhm.
especially if you're feeling that pull to do something different, to try something different, to learn something different. There's a reason for it. It just
Mhm.
means that you may have to go inward and ask yourself questions
Mhm.
versus getting opinions from everyone else, right?
Yes, exactly, exactly. Who you're speaking to are the people that know there's more. They know it from the feeling level. They may not
Mm-hmm.
know how to make sense of it or where to look because they're looking outside. But as they're willing to shift their focus, there's so much more that will start to come in. And
Yeah.
it does because you've activated something in the looking within, in the giving yourself time and space,
Mm-hmm.
in your willingness to take a few minutes every day to sit and be quiet and
Yep.
just get curious about what's it like to get quiet, because our brains are usually so very busy.
So busy. Yes, I love that so much. And this has been such a beautiful conversation, Laurie. So I can't thank you enough for being a guest on the podcast and being a part of all this. One thing I ask from all of my guests as we come to a close is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you would like to leave the audience with?
Mm. The piece of advice would be to take those few minutes every day, to know that there is more. There is more, and you are more. And get curious about that. Get curious about that, and then take a couple of breaths, because the breath is this thing that, well, everybody has, of course. And the breath has an incredible intelligence to it, because it knows what to do in the physical body. You don't have to direct it. You don't have to guide it. It just does it. But your breath is also that which brings in from that undifferentiated field into yourself. So see that breath as light, and let the light start to light up your cells, because that's all about vibration. We haven't even talked about that, but that's all about how we raise our vibration, raise our frequency.
Yeah, definitely. So I can't thank you enough, Laurie. We may have to do a part 2 to talk about the vibrations in the body and how you can raise those. So thank you again so much for being a part of the podcast. Please do me a favor, share how anyone can connect with you, follow you if they want to be in your world. How can everyone find you?
The best place is certainly on my website, which is thebacainstitute.com. That's BACA Institute.com. It's thebacainstitute.com. And you've got the quantum connection quiz that is free to take. You've got hundreds of blogs that you can read. And they're really useful, I think, towards everything we've been talking about, because everything we've been talking about, I've written on one moment or another. I'm on Facebook, the Baca Institute on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. So, I'm on all the social media, the usual social media places, and on my podcast, which is Wisdom Talk Radio. And that's on video and podcast.
Yes, definitely. And we'll have all that information in the show notes as well, so everybody can click on it and connect with you super easily. So we'll make sure that all that information is in there for you guys as well. Laurie, again, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. I can't thank you for this amazing and deep conversation.
Thank you, Kat. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, and to everybody else out there, I hope you guys were taking notes. If not, re-listen to this episode. I am sure there are some takeaways that you can take into your life right now with this conversation. So please be sure to share, like, subscribe, share it with someone that you know is looking to connect with their inner guidance system as well. And don't forget, until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.